So the next item is item 13B, and Zach Ramett from our Long Beach office will be presenting this item.
Thank you. Where's the clicker?
Clicker's there.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thanks. Item 13B is an amendment request from ADC Development Incorporated. The underlying permit subject to this proposed amendment is for a restaurant at 1305 Abbot Kinney Boulevard in Venice. The City of Los Angeles in 2010 approved this restaurant with 6 on-site parking spaces. That action was appealed to the Commission, and on October 13, 2010, the Commission approved a similar restaurant with 13 on-site parking spaces. The applicant has constructed the restaurant and the rooftop parking area at the rear, but asserts that the structure cannot support the weight of 3 approved vehicle parking lifts and that there's not enough space on site to provide the 13 required vehicle parking spaces. The site's located within the City of Los Angeles single permit jurisdiction area, but because the Commission approved the underlying permit, the Commission retains authority over subsequent amendments and amendment requests. The Commission-approved project includes a 1,248 square foot restaurant with 550 square feet of service area on the ground level fronting Abbot Kinney Boulevard. The Commission-approved project includes 13 on-site parking spaces, 12 of them in tandem atop a rooftop parking deck at the rear, and 3 of those 12 are proposed to be atop parking lifts, which would be atop 3 other parking spaces and then with 6 in front of those. Finally, the Commission-approved project includes a valet parking program, which requires the applicant to provide a parking attendant during all hours the restaurant is open and up to 3 attendants during peak operation periods. The site is a small lot, 3,400 square feet. It's commercially zoned in North Venice, about a half mile inland of Venice Beach and Venice Boardwalk. Abbot Kinney Boulevard, where the site is fronting, is a pedestrian-oriented street lined with eating and drinking establishments, retail stores, boutiques, art galleries, and a few residences. The community was established early in the 19th century, and many of the businesses have little or no on-site parking. The competition for the limited parking supply is intense between the residences in the area and commercial visitors. And it's especially intense in the evenings when restaurants and bars are more popular. A paid parking lot is located directly behind the subject site, opposite the rear alley behind Abbot Kinney and behind many of the businesses. This slide shows a variety of activity on Abbot Kinney Boulevard. The subject structure is the dark one on the left side with the construction fence in front of it. This slide shows the as-built restaurant and as-built rooftop parking area at the rear of the restaurant, and the alley would be just beyond the ramp to that parking area. This is the public parking lot immediately behind the rear alley and behind the restaurant. And the public parking area has been under construction for almost a year. It's been resurfaced and re-landscaped using funds generated from in-lieu fees charged to other businesses by the City of LA. And the condition is supposed to be open fairly shortly, and there's another public parking lot if you go farther north of Abbot Kinney Boulevard. So the amendment request is to remove the 3 vehicle parking lifts from the project description. They were originally approved as part of 13 parking spaces on the rooftop parking deck. And this slide is a bit difficult to read, but it shows 10 proposed parking spaces instead of the 13 required by the underlying permit. According to the applicant, this proposal came about because following issuance of the CDP, the City of Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety allowed the applicant to provide 12 bicycle parking spaces on the roof in lieu of the 3 parking spaces that would have otherwise been on the vehicle lifts. That action's allowed under the Los Angeles Municipal Code, which allows up to 30% of required vehicle parking spaces to be replaced by bike parking spaces. But that action was inconsistent with the CDP, which explicitly required 13 vehicle parking spaces. Following communication with Commission staff, the applicant acknowledges the city did not have jurisdiction to waive the requirement for the vehicle lifts, and the applicant has worked with Commission staff over the last few months to propose a rigorous set of transportation mitigation measures in addition to the 10 proposed parking spaces. So the applicant proposes those 12 bicycle parking spaces secured to 6 bike racks on the roof deck. Those are proposed for employee and customer use. Additionally, the applicant proposes 2 secure bicycle parking spaces inside the restaurant, primarily for employee use. The applicant also provides funding and maintenance for city programs which have provided bicycle parking corrals on Abbot Kinney Boulevard. There's 2 corrals that house approximately 18 bicycles each for public use on the street fronting the restaurant. The applicant also provides interest-free loans to employees who want to purchase bicycles to ride to work, and generally supports bicycle infrastructure in the area and in Venice. The applicant has offered to provide a level 2 electric vehicle charging station within the rooftop parking area, which will provide free electric vehicle charging to employees and customers of the restaurant. The site is well served by public transit. Multiple LA County Metro bus routes provide bus service. There's also a Santa Monica Big Blue bus that serves the area. And Metro's Expo light rail line is set to be complete in early 2016, which would be about 1.5 miles away, but might potentially bring more people to Venice. The applicant proposes to utilize the rooftop parking area as efficiently as possible to enable the maximum amount of vehicles to park and to minimize transition and idling time of employees and customers. The applicant states that parking attendants will be on site at the restaurant anytime it's open, and as stated, the underlying coastal development permit requires up to 3 attendants during peak use periods. The city recognizes 9 conforming parking spaces in tandem on the roof, 3 sets of 3. There's also an ADA compliant parking space at grade next to the ramp. So that's a total of 10. The applicant states that up to 2 more parking spaces may be available on the ramp up to the roof deck during peak use periods using those 3 valets. The city wouldn't officially recognize that, and the submitted plans don't officially call out those 2 spaces, but the applicant asserts that they're available. The parking lot has not been accessible at the rear, the public parking lot, and the applicant asserts that that public parking lot will further alleviate congestion in the area. The applicant's parking analysis, prepared in 2010 during the underlying CDP process, concluded that during most hours of most days, parking demand will be fewer than the 10 proposed parking spaces. The analysis was based on national standards developed by the Urban Land Institute and projected total demand at 11 vehicles from approximately 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 vehicles from approximately 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on weekends. The analysis predicted up to 12 vehicles on weekends for 1 hour between 7:30 and 8:30. During that hour and during the other hours when there was an increase in parking demand, the applicant states that attendants could utilize the ramp parking area to meet the excess demand of 1 or 2 extra spaces. The standard of review for the proposed amendment is the Chapter 3 policies of the Coastal Act. The Venice Land Use Plan may be used as guidance. And the proposal to provide 10 conforming vehicle parking spaces instead of the 13 required by the CDP is not consistent with the Venice Land Use Plan, which would require 12 parking spaces on site and up to 1 additional parking space on site or provision of payment in lieu. However, the applicant's proposal may be found to be consistent with the Coastal Act and with recent Commission actions which encourage alternate modes of transportation. Staff believes the amendment is consistent with Section 30252 because the applicant's program facilitates provision of extension of transit service, it provides non-automobile circulation, and provides adequate parking facilities or substitute means of serving the development. And staff believes the proposed amendment is consistent with Section 30253 because the provision of bicycle parking and the EV charging station minimizes energy consumption and vehicle miles traveled. So staff is recommending approval of the subject amendment, subject to strict conditions, to ensure that the parking area is used for parking and not for dining, and that the approved development does not negatively affect public access to the coast. Special Condition 1 states that the approved development is a restaurant with a maximum of 550 square feet of service floor area, including indoor and outdoor, and a roof deck and a total of 10 parking spaces. And Special Condition 1 says that in the event of noncompliance with the approved parking program, the permittee's right to use the 550 square feet of service area shall terminate. Staff recommends Special Condition 2 be modified to require the applicant to maintain an area with a minimum of 12 outdoor and 2 indoor bicycle parking spaces for convenient, free bicycle parking, as well as provide a minimum of 1 ADA accessible parking space, provide a minimum of 1 functional Level 2 electric vehicle charging station, and reimburse 100% of the cost of transit for employees who ride transit to work. The applicant already has this transit pass program in place, stating that they propose up to 80% reimbursement. Staff believes 100% will encourage more employees to ride transit. And in order to further maximize that incentive for employees to ride transit to work, the transit reimbursement program shall not be limited to a particular program by Metro, but by any means that employees use to ride transit to work. Special Condition 8 would require the applicant to record against the parcel a new deed restriction imposing the special conditions of this permit as amended, as covenants, conditions, and restrictions. There was an addendum to this item with 14 emailed letters in opposition of the amendment. Staff omitted 1 email from that addendum, and I distributed copies of that email, which is similar to the other 14. The motion to approve the amendment is on page 3, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Are there any ex partes on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring forward Mr. Vitalich and ask how much time you'd like for your presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Stephen Vitalich, architect and representative for the applicant, Franz Semi. I think 10 minutes would probably do it.
Thank you.
I'd like to take you through just a brief chronology of events of how we've gotten here today, and it's pretty much consistent with what the staff just reiterated, but basically the applicant had applied for a building permit in March of 2011, and then subsequently the coastal development permit was required, and that was issued in April of 2011. And that condition of approval required 13 parking spaces, 12 to be provided on the roof deck and 1 to be provided at grade handicap. That also was a triple tandem scenario, which is a very complicated sort of scenario with 3 parking lifts and then 9 cars in tandem. It was very cumbersome to try to accommodate that on the property, but the building was designed to accommodate that. And that's the way it was approved in the CDP. Those plans were prepared and submitted to LADBS, and the permit was issued in May of 2012 to construct that building. The building had been under construction for a number of years. In May of 2013, the city adopted an ordinance, the bicycle parking ordinance. That bicycle parking ordinance not only conditions projects to provide bicycle parking on the property, it also provides a provision to replace vehicle parking with bicycle parking at a ratio of 4 bikes to 1 car, maximum of 30% or 20%, depending upon the type of project it is. If it's a mixed-use project, it allows up to 30%, but never do they allow more than 4 cars to be replaced by bicycles. In November, the applicant applied for a supplemental permit to remove the lifts off the building, revise the structure of the building, to do some value engineering to try to save some cost. It's a very complicated small building. It's a small building, only about 1,400 square feet, very, very complicated little building on a very tight site. That supplemental permit was applied for with Building and Safety in November of 2013. And we used the bicycle parking ordinance as a provision to help relieve the lifts off the building, remove the lifts off the building. A coastal clearance was obtained through city planning in 2014, June of 2014, consistent with that supplemental permit application. In December of 2014, that permit was issued. And then in March of 2015, as construction was nearing completion and all our inspections were nearing completion, we received a notice from LADBS on March 31st of an intent to revoke that permit based on the fact that the city planning department had errantly given the coastal clearance to allow that supplemental permit to be executed. Since that time, since March 31st, all construction, anything that has to do with construction on the property has been ceased and stopped. Subsequent to that, we met with coastal staff in Long Beach and had a number of conversations with coastal staff in Long Beach. We presented them photographic evidence that shows that we can actually put 12 cars on the roof of that building and the one car at grade, which is the handicapped accessible space. We still can provide the 13 parking spaces on site. The hiccup with that, as staff mentioned, is that we would be parking 2 cars on the ramp area of the structure, which would not be recognized as parking by LADBS, but we can accommodate them during peak hours of time when the restaurant would be at peak, and we could park them there with an attendant. We filed the application for the amendment on April 7th, and we requested to remove the 3 parking lifts and use all the mitigation measures that staff had cited to you earlier in their presentation. You know what, and it's interesting because although the commission hasn't certified the municipal code for the bike parking ordinance, and it goes in line with the Venice Pacific Plan not being certified by the commission, and the whole reason why we have a land use plan that's trying to be implemented by the city now and is going to be put in front of the commission at some point in time for consideration. I think there's an opportunity for the commission at this point in time to work in concert with the city in the same way that the city is trying to work in concert with the commission in developing a land use plan that everybody can agree to, that it encourages supporting small projects like this and supports them that they're using alternate means of transportation in what is a very parking challenged community. I've been a resident since 1967 of Venice. My family owned businesses at the old POP. And so, you know, I lived this for a long time, and I know we live in a parking challenged community, and I live just, you know, blocks away from this venue. So in the other thing that I want to bring to the commission's attention is that in June of last year, this commission was presented with, by staff, a situation that's relative to parking in Venice and relative to restaurant parking in Venice, where you had to consider the service floor area analysis. As you know, parking in Venice is derived for a restaurant based on the service floor area. At that time, the staff recommended that they would like to be consistent with the City of LA and the state code in providing for disabled access and code egress and ingress not to be included as part of service floor area, because you can't literally put tables and chairs there, so it shouldn't be considered that. So actually staff recommended that they support a project in Venice that was taking that approach, and this commission endorsed that recommendation, and they approved that project with that, and I believe that was a precedent-setting issue. So I just think that in the spirit of that, I think that this commission has an opportunity now to agree with the staff's recommendation and support alternate means of transportation being utilized and being requested for this community, because we are a parking challenged community. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
I can answer any questions if you'd like to.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Vidalich. Okay, I'm going to invite up Sue Kaplan, followed by Elaine Spire, and then Lana Marosi. Okay. Send her up. Okay. So you'll have 6 minutes. And please state your name for the record.
My name is Elaine Spearer. I live just a few doors from the subject property. We have the same shared alley, and the same public parking lot is behind each of our properties.
A little closer to the microphone would be helpful.
I want to correct a thing that was just said. The parking lot behind the properties has been fully operative for 7 years. Now, it hasn't been an improved parking lot, but it's been fully operative. It's been shut down simply for the last few months while we get a gorgeous parking lot with meters. But it's always been available. It's not new to the community. Before you is a capitulation of key documents and dates on this project. And you each have a packet of the critical emails. They're hard to read on the screen, so I thought it's kind of silly for me to put them up there and can't even read them. So I'm going to give you a narrative. I'm going to give you a narrative of what the community in general, who has been active on this project, thinks about this project and this amendment to change what was decided in 2010. They want you to deny this amendment entirely, because it's very impactful in the neighborhood, and it changes what everybody believed was a decided event in 2010. This was very, very contentious. Everybody put major effort into this to get the resolution that we got. And so we ask you, because of its impact and on its precedent to deny a 2010 decision, that you should reject that. You all know about our cumulative parking deficit here. Changing this now to remove 3 parking places just makes it worse. This is a continuing battle we have. Continually, we are forced to swallow these exemptions that are given for credits and really baloney. The guy agreed to put him in, he should put him in. He took his permit out, agreeing to put him in. Everybody thought they were going in. It was only discovered that they weren't going in by a neighbor who reported it to the council office. The council office went to Building and Safety. Building and Safety recognized immediately that Building and Safety had no authority to change your decision. I called Coastal myself. Chuck Posner told me no, all the decisions would have to come through Coastal. The attempt to change this parking issue was in 2013, before the city ordinance went into effect. This email you'll see in your packet is evidence that this actually was in the program. The Venice specific plan does not accept the bicycle ordinance. Maybe it will in the future, but not retroactively. Just because this applicant wants to get rid of these lifts, and he's been very determined to get rid of these lifts, he stealthily did this behind your back. He must know that you have no watchdog to enforce your decisions. He must have hoped you would never know that he had eliminated 3 parking places. The city knows this clearly. Greg Shoup is the planner. He knows more about rules and regs than just about anybody. He knew he had no authority to nurture the approval of the parking ordinance use. This was a deliberate attempt to evade and avoid your decision. We count on your decision. We believe you. We trust you. You're the voice of reason in our mind. You're not political. You're not bought off and convinced by various architects and their consultants. We like to think that you truly are independent voices. If you approve this, this will send a very loud announcement to all the other developers out there that just get your permit going. Say yes to anything. We're going to go get our gimmies from the Coastal Commission later, and we're going to get everything changed. Just go for it, because that's what this opportunist has really done. He knows the rules. He knows that you're in authority here. He really bamboozled the city into giving him approved engineering plans and to shepherd this bike ordinance through. And he did this almost immediately after he pulled his permit to build. After the engineering changes were made without your knowledge, that's when he got the permit for the bikes. When Building and Safety was informed that he did this, they wasted no time at all and informed him they were revoking the supplemental permit immediately, and they would give him an opportunity to rescind that permit. He agreed that he would rescind the permit, and he agreed to Building and Safety that he would, in fact, comply fully with your 2010 decision. What happened next? He lied. He ignored the agreement to comply, and he came to you for an amendment to get rid of those parking spaces that he's so determined to get rid of. We're more desperate now than ever for parking places than we were in 2010 when you approved this.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very, very much. We ask you to deny his amendment.
Ilana Morosi, followed by Robin Rudisil. And Noel is, okay. So, Ilana?
I won't need all the time, I'm sure.
Well, we'll give you 6 and go for as much as you need, and we appreciate your brevity.
Thank you.
He built the restaurant, but he was consistent with plans.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I intend to present you with the applicant's relevant history of non-compliance to the city laws and conditions in relation to this project and others. We'd like you to be aware that there are issues of non-compliance on all 4 of Mr. Seemey's restaurants in Venice, of one kind or another.
1096 for an amendment.
In fact, the applicant is ordered to appear before a judge next Monday for repeated non-compliance at 320 Sunset Avenue. As they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words, so allow me to show you. At 320 Sunset, which is coming up before the judge next week, you'll see these patrons are sitting and eating where absolutely no seating is permitted. This has been going on since the project opened 9 months ago. This is not permitted for parking either, but he does use it for parking as well. On this slide, same deal on the parking lot at 320 Sunset, on milk crates and garbage cans as well. On this slide, you're looking at patrons from his strictly takeout restaurant at 1423 Abbot Kinney, known as GTA, which is also not permitted for seating. Jelina's, his original restaurant next door to this one, was cited years ago for illegally increased seating. That order was not enforced and the extra seating was never removed. As well, he uses the one parking garage, which the city has conditioned to remain strictly for parking, as a refrigerated storage room for his restaurant. If nothing else, this operator has been consistent. He's been consistent at breaking the law in his determination to earn revenue, even if it is earned illegally and at the expense of the community. I'll close with the subject property at 1305 Abbot Kinney as his newest restaurant, replete with fancy paving stones, the same ones he installed at 320 Sunset for the illegal dining area, and the lush landscaping, as you'll see in the back. Bearing in mind that this is a valet-only parking deck, I'm sure the busy valets will appreciate all this splendour, as well as the elaborate winding staircase to the deck. However, based on the applicant's recent and relevant behaviour, one can expect this parking area to be converted to a dining terrace and never for actual parking. Commissioners, please reject the applicant's efforts to amend your 2010 decision. Dedicated parking areas should be for cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Kleiman?
Thank you very much, Commissioners. My name is Mark Kleiman. I want to emphasize at the outset that I am not here in my capacity as a member of the Venice Land Use and Planning Committee, but I'm here strictly as an individual. I want to talk about the cumulative impact of the removal of 30% of the required parking on this site and what it means in an area that the Commission has long recognized is badly overburdened. The loss of parking is going to mean two things that should be important to this Commission. The first is decreased access to the community and to the beach, and the second is that there is going to be increased traffic in the area as people circle for parking spaces. Although the promise has been made of free valet service, and a condition is being proposed regarding free valet service, the brutal truth in this area is that if any of you drive up and down Abbot Kinney at night, and I know some of you are in the area frequently, you will see that there is not a single actual free valet. They all charge, no matter what they've told you, no matter what you've told them. And in fact, this applicant's other restaurants charge for valet service as well. What that means is that the people are going to do what most folks do, which is that drive around hoping to find a free parking space, burdening the neighbors and increasing traffic in the areas. Here are the things that I would urge you to consider about the difference between the project as theorized and the project as it will be absolutely used. First of all, This is a fine dining restaurant, which I love. It's going to have a great menu, which I'll love, just like Jelina's does. Jelina's is a citywide destination. Because of the way Los Angeles works, a great many of Jelina's patrons are not bicycling in from the neighborhood, but are getting in cars, coming on the freeway. These are not local people who are going to be bicycling in from, half a mile or a couple of miles away.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is up. Appreciate it. And that completes the public comment. We'll bring it back to the commission staff.
Yes, in recognition of some of the concerns that were raised with regard to the conversion of that upper deck to dining, we do have conditions in the permit that require the applicant to comply with the permit, but with the terms of the permit. That doesn't guarantee it's going to happen, but these are the restrictions that are laid out in the permit, including the free valet and free bike parking and all of that. One thing that did come to my attention as we were as the testimony is laying out, is that this is an after-the-fact application because he did not construct the structure to accommodate the three lifts. And we did not charge the 5 times the permit fee, so which we typically would do. And the fee is for a permit amendment is half the fee of the underlying permit. So we are proposing or recommending a condition requiring that 5 times fee for the amendment as a special condition of the permit. So we are amending our recommendation. So with that, unless Zach has anything else to add, I think that'll do it.
Thank you. Bring it back here. Commissioner Boschko.
Yes, thank you. I just want to ask Jack a question. 2 questions, actually. When you say they did not construct the building in a way that would support the lift, that in other words, it needed to be a stronger foundation or whatever. Do you know, in your conversations with them, did they explain why? Was it a matter of cost, or was it a matter of a mistake, or how did that come about?
No, what happened was when they went to the Department of Building and Safety, and they got this provision to waive the parking for how many? I think it was 3 spaces
For the 3 lifts.
For the 3 lifts in lieu of, with the bike parking. At that point, they changed the design, and as the applicant's representative said, that to save some money on it, because they didn't have to have the lifts in their view. But the problem was that they didn't come back to I guess they went to the city planning and they gave them some sort of clearance, but they didn't come back to us, and we control the permit. This is so illustrative of what the problem with this permitting system in LA. It's just, it's madness.
Always.
And it causes all sorts of, problems, and why it's so critical. We need to get the rules in place.
Yeah.
The coastal development permitting ordinance and things like that to make it real clear as to what the rules and standards are.
Right.
So that's what.
Is it common for a restaurant to build parking on a roof? I have never seen that in Venice before.
This was really an unusual. When this came to us, it was really unusual.
So they were attempting. They were attempting to overcome the problem of parking by creating a new way of parking.
Yeah,
Yes.
and looking at that sort of pattern of development, I don't think that's what we want to see in Venice. What needs to happen in Venice is more public transit. Having in lieu fees that would go to to public transit, and moving people around in Venice more efficiently, and people coming into remote parking lots, and just moving both the tourists, people who work and live in the area more efficiently around Venice, not cramming more parking in there. That is contrary to what the act is all about and what is good urban planning.
I agree. So in that event, I'm going to move that the Commission approve the proposed amendment to Coastal Development Permit A5 VEN, VEN 10138A1, subject to the conditions set forth in the staff recommendation. I'm asking for a yes vote.
Second.
Thank you.
Speak further to your motion?
Yeah, just a little bit. Some of us are very familiar with this area. I mean, we go there quite often. I've never eaten at this restaurant or anything, but I'm aware of them because, as the gentleman said, I mean, they're really become quite famous in Los Angeles as a great dining experience. I I'm impressed that they came up with the idea in the first place of trying to overcome the parking problems in that city. I don't think that it's going to be that easy for them to ignore the conditions of the permit, especially since we've all talked about it so much, even if they intended to do it, which I'm not at all convinced that they are intending to ignore the permit. And I also agree that the solution to the Venice problem is not creating lifts on top of buildings to stack cars in the air. It just doesn't make any sense. We need public parking lots, buildings like we have in Santa Monica and some other places. We need to encourage bicycles, as this does. We need to encourage public transit. And, some people would like to actually see some of these streets made walking streets and not even traveling streets. So there's a lot that can be done in Venice that has nothing to do with whether or not these 3 lifts were a good idea or a bad idea. So that's why I'm supporting staff's recommendation.
Thank you. To your second?
Yeah, I recall us dealing with this issue, I believe last month. I remember it was in Santa Barbara. I can't remember where we were, but I just wanted to ask staff, maybe I'm wrong about this. There was a Hotel Irwin project, and they also had a request to reduce the number of spaces and swap them in lieu for bicycle.
Yes, we took that on appeal,
Right.
And we're working on that application right now where they proposing more bike parking and
But that's
transit.
similar to this, where they
Yes.
were following a city policy that allows them to do that to reduce vehicle parking in lieu for bicycle parking spaces to help promote alternative means of transportation, right?
That's correct, and it just didn't quite sync up with our underlying permit conditions, so that's what we're working on with the applicant right now.
So I think approving this motion is consistent with what we've done in the past for this. I also want to kind of sound the same chord that my commissioner to my right just sounded, which is that I think this project shows how an applicant can bend over backwards to work, work positively with the environment, to put rooftop parking and to make available rooftop parking where throughout Abbot Kinney there's very little private parking available at all for any of the storefronts. Shows a tremendous amount of effort, and for them to move towards the idea of swapping out car parking for bike parking, while maybe it's for in self-interest because it's cheaper for them to build a parking lot, it's still promoting and encouraging alternative means of transportation. I think should be encouraged as well. We certainly don't want to be in a position to discourage priority funding and priority placement on alternative means of transportation and public transportation. So I will happily be supporting this project, and they have delicious food at their other restaurants.
Thank you. Vice Chair Zimmer.
Thank you. So I appreciate the comments that have been made in the big picture, but I've got some concerns here that I would like to explore a little bit further. The first of them being is, when we sit here, every case that we decide, when it's reviewed again, is reviewed in isolation, but we're reviewing it in the context of other cases that even come up the same day. And so it's very difficult to reconcile, especially when we talk about Venice, what we end up doing for the same reason that we always end up doing it, which is that Venice doesn't have an LCP, or the city of LA doesn't have an LCP. And so the thing that causes me the greatest concern here is that the staff report cites to the certified land use plan, which we keep saying is a good start, a good certified land use plan, and now we're waiting for the implementation plan. And that land use plan is to be taken as guidance, because it's not a fully certified LCP. And that land use plan has a specific policy that states for restaurants, 1 space for each 50 square feet of service floor area per annum, including outdoor service areas. And so what I want to understand is, if this amendment were denied by the commission, because this is an as-built, it was unpermitted when it was built. The applicant knew what the LUP said when this was built. The applicant presumably knew that the bicycle ordinance was not part of the LUP and has not been certified by this commission. So if this amendment were denied now, what would be the consequence to this restaurant? Would they have to remove 100 square feet of service area and use it for something else?
Yeah, they have to remove 150 square feet in order to comply with that requirement. And then that's difficult, because how do you enforce something like that? You know, it becomes a difficulty. Or you'd have to, come up with some other alternative, But the problem is that, we used to have an in lieu fee program for parking in Venice, and we found it was not adequate, and it was based on old figures. And when we talk about the LUP parking requirements, you have to remember those were approved back in 2003 in a different time, and where that was how we were dealing with a lack of parking. Now the solution is multiple modes of transportation, not relying on parking. So in this instance, we felt that given the fact that he has a number of transportation demand management measures, including bikes, the 100% funding for his employees and those sorts of things will mitigate for the impact of these 3 spaces that are lost. So,
well, what is our record?
Problem.
Yeah, what is our record in Venice in enforcing these kinds of transportation demand management programs? I mean, the public, which is now the beach-going public, as well as the neighboring residents, which now have to compete to an even greater degree for scarce on-street parking, probably has a hard enough time keeping track of what people are actually doing in outdoor areas of a restaurant that are not authorized for dining, as they showed us in these pictures. I don't know how the public can monitor these transportation demand measures to even understand whether there's compliance or not. How do we monitor it? Do we?
It's difficult because we just don't have most planning agencies have, code enforcement and that sort of thing. We don't have that kind of resources. These provisions are only as good as the local government that implements them and enforces those requirements.
Except
we're
that
not
in this
supposed to
case,
be in the business of permitting, and we don't have the staff to do that sort of monitoring. So you're right. We don't.
But in this
monitor.
case, isn't it correct that the building department actually caught an error and made a move to put a stop work on this because they realized that they were not in compliance with their coastal development permit? So while we keep hearing from the public that the building department in LA allows everything to go through, doesn't enforce, doesn't apply the ordinances, now they tried to apply the law as it's written, and we're saying, it seems to me that we're saying once again that this community has to pay the price for a failure that isn't a failure of the community. So, I'm not asking you to defend that. I'm just coming to the conclusion that with everything that's been said, I cannot support this motion.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Okay. Yes, Commissioner Pastor and Commissioner Uranga.
I'd like to request, the first opponent had some slides and there was an email at the end of her presentation. Would you be able to bring that up just for a moment, please? I think it was from the staff person from the council member's office. Anyway, I just wanted to mention, as noted in the staff report here, even though some commissioners have concerns about the 3 spaces on the lifts, that is what the commission approved back in 2010. And in this is from the Deputy Director of Land Use and Planning. Let me see. They've started drafting the intent to the revoke letter. Wait. I think it's the email after this. Is there an email after this? I thought there was an email that said that they were going to come to the commission.
Right, this one right here.
Oh, yes.
yeah.
I'm sorry. You had it right there. The applicant has decided to move forward with a plan approved by Coastal. They are going to file a supplemental permit to revert back to the plan with the car lifts. Glad we could catch this early, and that was just a few months ago. So it was the folks in the community's impression that what the applicant was going to come back with was the lifts. And that's not what they're doing. Am I getting that wrong? No. Okay. I think the folks in the community, they should be concerned. This is from the council member's office. The council member is under the impression that this applicant was going to be coming back here to comply with the additional condition of the car lifts, which was a condition that this commission did in 2010. So I cannot support the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner Uranga.
From the discussion that we're having and the recommendation that we have from staff and the intent of the owner as to or the applicant, what's going on, I think the whole thing is disingenuous as a whole. The building was constructed knowing that the roof cannot support the cars. Lifts are very expensive, they're very costly, and I don't think there was ever an intent to create to build a lift, so I will not be supporting this.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Commissioner Howe?
Thank you, Chair Kinsey. I tend to agree with Commissioner Zimmer. This seems to me that we're again putting the burden on Venice and the neighborhood. I don't think that we're really living in the real world when we think that people are going to take the bus to this restaurant. I also don't believe they're going to walk 1.5 miles from the train to get to this restaurant, and I don't think that they're going to ride their bikes. I agree with Commissioner Boschko that there does need to be some public lots, and eventually you reach a saturation point where even though the other businesses do not provide parking, at one point maybe you could do that, but now you can't. The parking's used up, and the public has a right to get to the beach and not have to drive around Venice for 3 hours trying to find a spot to park. I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, and the maker of the motion and the seconder are asking for a yes vote.
Commissioner Cox?
Yes.
Cox, yes. Commissioner Groom?
No.
Groom, no. Commissioner Howell?
No.
Howell, no. Commissioner McClure? Yes. McClure, yes. Commissioner Mitchell? Yes. Mitchell, yes. Commissioner Pestor? Pestor, no. Commissioner Uranga?
No.
Uranga, no. Commissioner Vargas?
Yes.
Vargas, yes. Commissioner Zimmer?
No.
Zimmer, no. Commissioner Bochco?
Yes.
Bochco, yes. Chair Kinsey?
No.
Chair Kinsey, no. The vote is 5-6.
And the no prevails? All right. So that completes that item. We will move along.